Hello everyone. Hover mode has drastically changed the way landing works in Star Citizen. While hover mode is going to continue to be iterated on, likely in ways that will make it more user-friendly, we do not know when those changes will come, so I thought I'd give a quick tutorial on landing and takeoff in the meantime. Caveat: this tutorial uses the third-person camera to properly line up with the landing pad. Without a landing UI, chin bubble, or crew member to call your lineup, in my opinion, this is the only way to safely and consistently land in vertical hangars. You may get lucky landing in vertical hangars without it, especially in smaller ships, but there's really no way to ensure a 100% success rate unless you memorize every single landing pad's visual cues. One mantra I think would help anyone during a landing approach in Star Citizen is the flying adage, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Remember to take things one step at a time and don't get ahead of yourself. With that, I'll now go through a landing step by step using a Drake Caterpillar because I suspect that the large size and asymmetric design makes it one of the more difficult ships to land with. Step 0. Preparing for a landing actually starts on the ground. You need to know your ship, particularly where the center of your ship is, so that you can easily line it up with the center of the landing pad. The easiest way to do this is to spawn your ship and look at what part of the ship is centered on the landing pad. Another way is to use third-person camera while on the pad and rotate to see what the ship looks like when it's perfectly centered. Doing this with the Drake Caterpillar, I can see that the center of the ship lies between the first two metal bands forward of the command module. The other part of preparing is ensuring your controls are set up correctly. You'll need to make sure that your rotation and movement axes have enough dead zone that you won't induce any drift without input. You'll also need to make sure that you have freelook and speed limiter bound. Step 1. Lower your landing gear. There's no downside to doing this early, so it's best to do it right away so you don't forget. Step 2. Turn on your speed limiter. Lower the speed limiter to a speed safely outside the hover mode activation range. For the CAT, I found that between 60 and 65 meters per second worked pretty well. It is important that you remain above hover activation speed until you are near the landing pad. Optionally, enable cruise control to ensure that you keep your speed up. I prefer this option. Step 3. Call for landing. Note that in this video, I already had clearance because I had done a few practice approaches first. Step 4. Locate the landing pad. It will be marked by a circled gear icon. Step 5. Conduct a rookie pass. The purpose of this pass is to observe the landing pad and surrounding area so that you can come up with a plan for an approach. I know most players don't do this, but given how difficult landing is now, I highly recommend doing a higher altitude pass to make things easier. For example, looking at this pad, I noted its orientation and that the best direction to approach from would be from my left due to less obstruction. There's also another landing pad in that direction that can be used to help line up my approach. Step 6. Fly an approach pattern. Note, in this example I conducted my recce pass in a way that allowed me to roll straight into my approach pattern. If you're still trying to figure landing out, at this point I recommend flying past the landing zone and then coming around for another overhead pass before beginning your approach. Once you feel confident, you can go straight from the recce pass into the approach. How you do the approach is up to you and will need to vary based on the landing area, but at Lorville I was able to make a simple box pattern work for me. I first flew over the landing zone perpendicular to the direction I actually needed to land in. Making sure to keep my altitude high to avoid the restricted area, I counted approximately 5 potatoes, then turned left. I used the city's grid to make sure I turned exactly 90 degrees. I then counted 10 potatoes and turned left again. I shallowed out my turn and continued around 180 degrees until I saw the landing zone I was looking for. Making the time box pattern gave me the time I needed to line up using the visual references I saw during the recce pass. Step 7. Transition to hover mode. On final, line up as best you can with the center line of the landing pad in the orientation you want to land in. Once ready, with your finger ready on the space brake button, slowly decrease the speed limiter, being ready for hover mode to kick in. As soon as it kicks in, press and hold the space brake button. If you're using cruise control, turn it off immediately. Your ship will flare and stop itself. It may oscillate once stopped. If it does, release speed brake and use manual pitch to set exactly 0 degrees elevation. Ensure that the velocity meter reads 0 and then you have 0 drift, then press Z to engage freelook. With freelook on, you will avoid accidentally pitching, yawing, or rolling, and you'll be able to take your time during the landing. Additionally, you'll be able to look around. Step 8. Position over the center of the pad. Even though I have analog strafe, I prefer to do this simply by tapping the strafe keys on the keyboard to keep the thrust isolated. Lower the speed limiter to minimum by holding it until it's 0, then tapping increase once. This will help you control the descent. Note that some players like lowering the thrust limiter as well, but I do not do it myself because with just the speed limiter and a keyboard, I can still be super gradual and smooth, and lowering the thrust limiter reduces your ability to abort the landing quickly. Using exterior camera, line up with what you identified as the center of the ship in step 0 with the exact center of the pad. This will ensure you do not hit the sides of the hangar during the descent. Step 9. Tap the control key to slowly lower into the hangar. Note that using the speed limiter and only tapping the strafe down will allow you to do this at only a few meters per second, which allows you to stop and correct lineup easily on the way down, and makes it more likely that you will be able to recover in the event that you lined up incorrectly and hit one of the sides of the hangar. If this happens, use space brake to stop drift, space bar to go back above the hangar, then correct your lineup and try again. Step 10. As soon as you are on deck, press U to shut off the engine. This will ensure that you do not drift on the pad. Once you do that, press Z to disengage freelook, and then you can exit your seat. Takeoff. Takeoff comparatively is incredibly easy because you already start level and perfectly aligned with the pad. It's so easy once you know how to do it that I'm going to show you how to take off and exit the landing environment as expeditiously as possible. Step 1. Before turning on your ship, press Z to engage freelook. This will ensure that you do not accidentally add any rotation inputs during takeoff. Step 2. Power on your ship. Step 3. Call for takeoff. Step 4. Wait for the hangar doors to open. Since you have freelook enabled, you can do this easily. Step 6. Once the hangar doors are open enough, press the spacebar to strafe upwards. I found that the cat needed afterburner to get off the deck, also it's more fun that way. Step 7. Once well clear of obstructions, throttle forward with afterburner as required, hit Z to disable freelook so that you can rotate freely and fly on out of there. Don't forget to pick up your gear. I hope this video helps some of you. Like I said at the beginning, I expect iteration on hover mode and the addition of a landing UI given what the developers have said recently on various CIG videos. Until then, remember to take your time while landing and do not be afraid to wave off a bad approach. That's all for today. Fly safe.